My name is Vern Coverdell. Let me tell you the story of my life. My father is William Franklin Coverdell and my mother is Sarah Moeller Coverdell. I was not born yet in this family photo. Allendale, Missouri is the place where I was born in November 7, 1897. You see, I was the last one of the tribe, and I had no recollection of grandparents at all. When I was about 4 years old, Mother and Dad and Grover and Park and I moved to Creston, Montana. My dad worked with the sawmill there. The river was large enough that they'd throw logs and timber down to this sawmill. After 4 years in Montana, we moved at Clayton, Kansas and tried to farm. Dad hauled more grain and feed from town for the livestock than we hauled into town. Then we moved to Atwood, Colorado after my dad traded our Kansas farm for a Colorado farm. We had 20 acres. My dad raised some cattle and hogs. We had 2 horses. We raised beets, grain and alfalfa. I used to sit on the back of a cow and ride the cow from our home down to the river. I started my schooling in Atwood and went through and finished up the grades in 1 year of high school, and then I went to the last 3 years of high school in Sterling. Gee, I remember hunting, bicycling, and football. In those days, the main transportation was the railroad. When I went to Sterling High School, in fair weather I rode a bicycle to school and back home. I could ride or drive a horse or I could catch the train. The U.S. declared war on Germany and immediately I enlisted in the Marine Corps on April 16, 1917. I did basic training at Mare Island, California. Then off to Quantico, Virginia. Then all of a sudden, they hurried us up, and we packed up our kit and baggies and took us down to Philadelphia and put us on a ship. We sailed from Philadelphia Navy Yard to overseas to France. We landed in St. Lazare. We heard there were fleets of German airplanes headed our way intending to drop bombs on this town. But they were brought down. I guess they would try, and try again, and that we should worry. We gave them a very warm and hot reception. Let 'em come. We went into the trenches March 17, 1918. My first injury, I was shot in my calf. The second injury was by a machine gun bullet to the left elbow and below the left elbow. I dressed my own wounds, and those of 3 men under heavy artillery and machine gun fire. I was injured a third time. I received the Croix de Guerre and the Cross of the Legion of Honor from the French Army. I received the Distinguished Service Cross for Extraordinary Heroism from the U.S. I also received a Purple Heart, Navy Cross, and Silver Star, among others. I came home on September 9, 1919. I will never forget my homecoming and seeing my parents' proud faces. The Atwood Telephone Exchange had no service that day since my parents left the post to come celebrate my return. They gave me a car. My injuries had healed, although my arm was still weak. After the war, I returned to work as a bookkeeper for the Logan County Advocate newspaper. It was time to settle down. I met Gertrude Kaiser, a German immigrant, at school dances and at the Elks Lodge. We married on May 17, 1921 in Brush, Colorado. She worked at the grocery store and I worked at the newspaper. We worked in the morning and we took the afternoon off and we went down and eloped. The Sterling pastor wasn't available, so we found another, a Presbyterian minister. We lived in Colorado our entire married life. We enjoyed going on drives. Gertrude's parents moved to the big city Denver and we enjoyed driving there. I ran as a Republican for the Logan County Treasurer and served from 1925 until 1928. In this article I am quoted that all the funds of this bank closure were fully covered. Later on, the Great Depression was a hard time. We had 2 beautiful daughters, Barbara and Phyllis. We were so happy to see them grow up. In 1930 I was a printing salesman and in 1940 I was a part owner of the newspaper. I served during World War II from 1941 to 1946. I trained at Camp Ritchie, Maryland. Later I was the commanding officer at several prison of war camps, including Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I was at Okinawa Base Command and other parts of the Pacific. From 1946 until my retirement in 1963, I worked for the Veterans Administration Regional Office in Sterling and Grand Junction, Colorado. I retired as a full colonel. Gertrude passed away March 12, 1963, 24 years before I did. She supported me through all of my life and I missed her when she was gone. Later in life, I worked at a bike shop called Santa Claus Shop and I liked to get my hands dirty. I was a man of integrity and fairness. Respected and loved by many. As a Mason, I reached the exalted ruler of the Sterling Elks Lodge. I died on June 6, 1987 at age 89 in Aurora, Colorado. My funeral service was at Burns United Methodist Church, and the Sterling American Legion Post conducted my military rites. I was laid to rest next to my beloved wife Gertrude at Riverside Cemetery in Sterling, Colorado. Come give me a visit. I'm Vern Coverdell. I'm a veteran of World War I, World War II, and was proud to represent the red, white, and blue. I'm a family man with a wife and 2 daughters from Sterling, Colorado. Thank you for listening to my story.